So I made a carry tutorial, and in that carry tutorial, I just kind of went over the general way that like the flow of a Dota game goes and stuff, and like I wanted to do one for every role, but I'm struggling on making the mid one because every time I try to do it, I just sort of get angry. And the reason I get angry is because it is so redundant and poignant that like I could summarize very quickly the tutorial on how to play every role in the game right now. Like truthfully, it is simply get the most out of your lane, and then push the towers in the right order and die as least as possible. That's it. There is a right order to push the towers. There is a right order to take team fights. Don't die in your lane. Do not be aggressive. Get as much as you can out of the lane. If you can get a kill, go for it. But like honestly, like the way that you play the game is getting close to solved. If not, it is solved in a way. Now, I want to give credit where credit is due and say that Dota devs have a very hard job. They have to balance a game with a very grumpy community, a very hardcore player base that has been fractured around 2017-18. The people that started playing the game and the original audience sort of left. Like the original audience is barely playing the game anymore. Most of the people that play the game is like a newer audience. So I think Valve has a decision to make. Are they going to start going back towards what the game was originally about, or are they just going to cater to the current audience? My thoughts are, if they continue to cater to the audience, the game will assuredly die in a matter of years. It is already happening. You can see with player numbers, all like the game is too simple. Really, it is. They have, in the sake of quality of life and in the name of like accessibility, they have essentially gutted this game to the point of solvability, which is what has been the biggest shame of everything. The history of this is like, it all kind of started around 2017 and 2018. Like, shrines were a really bad addition to the game. They didn't know at the time, and I'm not going to be like, they should have never added them because it was an experimental thing, but they held on to them for way too long. And like, trying so hard to make shrines work was the beginning of the end, because it switched what laning was about to be about, well, like, I guess you could argue that bottle crowing did this, but the thing, okay, so I'll try to make my point and then I'll counter-argue it, but my point was that laning became so much about sustain that it seems like that was the pattern that they have been unable to let go of since shrines were there. Like, in the past, though, there was a thing with bottle crowing, which if you didn't play Dota back then, because if you're watching this video, you probably didn't. They removed it around 2013 or 14. What it was if you put your bottle on the courier, you could send your courier back to the base, and then your courier would refill the bottle when it touched the fountain, and then you could bring it back. The downside of this was you had one courier, and if the enemy team saw that you were bottle crowing, they could kill your courier, and your entire team would be without a courier. Your mid lane would be without regen. Like, it was a risky maneuver to do. And the evidence of this is in, like, C9 versus EG back in the day. EG had, like, Arteezy as their mid laner. And Cloud9, whenever they'd play against them, would be privy to the fact that, like, Arteezy loved to bottle crow. So they would pick Bounty Hunter support with the entire intent purpose of just killing the enemy courier every time they ferried it out. And then EG would have to rotate supports in just to protect the courier. Do you know how interesting that is? That was a unique team dynamic where they were approaching the game unlike anybody else. That doesn't happen anymore. The game is so one-dimensional, and part of why I've been getting so mad about this mid thing is because it's like, it extends to every role. Every role is just like a pseudo core. 5 used to be like the most fun. Well, it didn't used to be the most fun for me, but I loved 5, I guess, at the very least. And now I cannot stand having to play 5. I think 5 is a miserable role. And the reason I think that is because they have put too much emphasis on items. I have a major disconnect with the Dota player base and what they desire from the support role. What I enjoyed about the support role, what I thought was awesome, was the fact that you could play heroes like Chen, and you could control the entire early game, you could control every single lane. Like, your job as a support was to, like, win every lane. Think about macro, think about vision, think about all these, like, interesting things with the acknowledgement that your hero is not going to be useful later, but to maximize your input and impact early on. Sorry for stuttering, I'm trying to do the best I can here. But that was what the 5 role was about. The 4 role was about, like, securing the lanes with rotations, moving around the map, denying the enemy 3 his farm by trading or farming poles while the 5 traded. Like, 3 being a solo lane was so much more interesting. Dota was such a unique game. No game played like this. And I can acknowledge that back in the day, even C9 kind of solved the idea of laning with dual lanes, because they figured out that if you were to dual lane without feeding and just like trickling a bunch of kills into like aggressive tri-lanes or tri-lanes, then the dual lanes almost always just win out in EXP. They just beat it over a long-term period of time. So like, I know how we got to this point. C9 is the one who solved it. But I think that it's been unhealthy for the game for us to focus so damn heavily on, like, allowing the offlane. Like, look at this. The reason it worked is because the offlane couldn't pull. Do you see where these camps are? The offlane couldn't pull. That was important. It was important. And people will be like, oh, well, the offlane should not have to, like... I felt as though the offlane was an interesting role, because I felt like what you were trying to do is you were trying to be clever. You were trying to find ways to maximize what you could get out of the game. You had to do things like, if I stand next to this range creep when they're harassing me, my range creep will hit them when they're harassing me, and over the course of a couple of waves, I'll guarantee myself, like, several waves. Like, I have to think about how to constantly block these camps. Whereas supporting now in lane is you literally just, like, hit enemy, walk over, block camp, trade it with a support because you're just fighting over who gets their pull camp. Like, this shit is really frustrating. It's just very bland. There's an exact order you take the towers in every single game. You always take enemy safe lane into enemy mid lane, and then you ignore the offlane towers unless the enemy offlane feeds so bad that it's free. You literally ignore them because they're useless to take. They don't give you anything. There's nothing there. The map is too fucking big. Like, I don't know, man. It's just, I'm frustrated. Part of it is because the game is getting closer to being solved, not just because of the decisions Valve is making. But I would like to posit that the reason the game has gotten so close to being solved is because they removed so many things from this game in the sake of, quote, quality of life. You can't strip away building buildings in StarCraft and then be like, well, players are spending too much time microing and not enough time macroing, and everyone's bored because they don't build, like, their build orders are the same every game. Like, I know Valve hasn't said anything about this. I'm just trying to posit an idea. By removing so many things that, like, make the game what the game is, you've pushed it into this space where people have so much, like, free... Like, if you only have so much brain RAM to keep track of all the stuff you have to do in any given Dota game, the more things you remove, the more focus you get on this, like, these very small things about, like, oh, I just CS. And, like, you devalue all the other stuff about the game. Like, laning with one courier was so important. It made the game so much more interesting and dynamic with side chops. It made the laning layout was so much better because there was limited farm on the map. It made the map more, like, you had to think about the way that you played the map a lot more. It wasn't just the same way you respond to every situation. Like, heroes like Chen right now are literally unplayable. Yeah, I'm sure there's, like, a Chen specialist out there who's like, no, he's not. I have a 60% win rate over 1,000 games. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in the professional scene, the only reason Chen gets picked is when he has something that's, like, in terms of numbers, completely overtuned. Because the hero right now is just shit. Like, the value that you offer a team in a game of Dota as Chen is just nothing that, like, an Enchantress will offer you. She's the same hero, but she just does damage. Like, what was the point of reworking Chen? Getting rid of fucking, like, his 2 nukes and send back, and, like, what was the point of all this stuff? I hate to be old man yells at Cloud and, like, oh, all change is bad, but it feels like these changes just don't make any fucking sense. And I'm not coming from a position of, like, I'm not willing to examine why they did these things. I honestly do think I understand why they made these decisions. I'm not trying to just be like, this is trash, the other thing here is fucking trash, Valve is trash. Like, I'm not trying to just shit on them. I'm trying to come at this from a place of good faith. Like, I want to see the game move in a better direction, but it's really frustrating for me because I'm going to end up being redundant. I have to try to continue this point forward, but you kind of get what I'm saying. the last point I want to make to strengthen my position on this is like the mid lane is like went from being the most popular role in Dota to the least popular role out of like every core role. Why? Because what the mid lane used to be was this role that could be anything. Now the mid lane has to literally be everything. Why is that? Because I guess offlane's probably less popular still, but because the mid lane is gone from being this flexible core that could kind of do anything, whether you wanted to approach it from like, I want to snowball my lane, to I want to be like a core with like the late game where you could be like a tinker. Don't even get me fucking started on that hero. But like that hero has been historically one of the worst heroes in the game, and they're like married to the idea of trying to force it to be a support instead of just like making it a decent core because people hate buying wards, which is another thing. They've like removed most of the interesting ward spots. Anyway, what mid lane has become is like you have like the reason Pango and Void Spirit are the best mid laners in Dota. They're probably not right now. I don't think they are right now. I think right now it's like Quap and Puck, but I will get to that in a sec. But the reason they were so good for so long, for so many years, isn't just their numbers were good. And what Valve seems to miss is that like they were like, oh well, we just have to undertool their numbers. Well, the reason they were good is because they did everything. They had initiation, they had tank, they had stun, they had shields, they had wave clear, they had sustainable lanes, they had escape, they have everything. Like, and that's the thing, that's the trend that they set for the mid. Like, Puck still kind of does everything. The only difference is now Puck scales. Oh, that's another thing, they all scale. All these heroes scale, they can gank, they can do everything. Like, there's no weaknesses to heroes anymore. Like, what the fuck? Why does every hero have an Ags? Why does every hero have an Ag Shard? Why is you... Look at this. You used to have to manage your inventory slots with TP scrolls. You have to think about what the value of a TP is and if this item is valuable to what I want out of the game. Not just, I have a free TP slot, I should always carry one. You should have always carried one before anyway. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it had a value in, like, slot management. That word, oh, it's quality of life. You know, like, giving everybody one extra item slot means you give them a shit ton more health, and then you have to give everyone more damage because the fight, you want to keep the team fights around a certain duration every fucking patch, which you get, oh my gosh, every hero needs fucking 22 fucking health per point of strength, motherfuckers. Fuck, dude, it's so frustrating. It feels like the people that balance the game are so out of touch with the player base, to me. It just feels like a lot of the people that balance the game don't play it. And I understand that you are working a full-time job as a game dev. You don't have time to, like, understand the game at the level of like a very high level player, but I also think that you're trying to make sure you do the best you can for the general player base. But where I'm coming from is I think balancing around the casual is a complete misnomer and a pointless endeavor. My reasoning behind this is casual players are never going to be pushing the game to its boundaries. They're never going to be utilizing all the tools in the game. So why nerf heroes or balance heroes around like low MMR players who claim that a hero is annoying them? Like, what's the point? Like, I'm not even like a Tinker spammer, but like, what was the point of like gutting Tinker in the way that you did? And because if you're like, oh well, everyone complained about him and said he was too annoying, why is giving him a shield better? Like, Techies was made even more annoying. I miss old Techies. I actually hated old Techies. I miss old Techies compared to new Techies. New Techies, like, Taser is one of the most, like, unfun spells in the game. It seems like the general trend of Dota players is that they, like, complain about any hero that is punished by buying wards. And it's like, are we really going to rework the entire game off the idea that, like, oh, well, I don't want people to have to buy wards? It's such a, like, where are we going to draw the line as to how much quality of life we're going to allow the player base to have before we begin to just sacrifice everything that makes the game the game? Like, people will argue on Reddit, like, oh, 5 couriers is better because people used to take 1 courier and just run it around. Well, on this sentiment, Wisp should be removed. By this exact logic, Wisp shouldn't be in the game. Oh, but you can disable help. Yeah, the thing is, like, if you are disabling help with a Wisp, you have a useless hero. It's literally a useless hero. Like, you can't be so afraid of trolling and griefing that you don't give players responsibility. Like, if you think the player base can't handle the responsibility of choice, then I think that, like, it's up for the player base to begin to learn how to be more responsible. I don't think the game devs should have to bear the burden of, like, well, everyone's trolling, I guess we just have to remove the features of the game, because I don't think that's, I don't think it happens as much as people like to say they do. I just think they have, like, negative confirmation bias on whenever it happens, they really have it stick out in their mind. The diversity of strategy just feels like it's not what it once was. It's not just about like what heroes get picked. It's like it comes down to even like the reasons the heroes would get picked. It comes down to like what you're trying to accomplish in any given Dota game, the options you have available to you to win the game. Like, you used to be able to do stuff like play bounty hunter support and like pick off couriers and snowball lane, like the game off of like destroying the enemy mid laner. You used to be able to be like, we're going to play Naga mid, go Radiance, and like split up the enemies, play AM, just do this, do that. Like, you had like strategical diversity, not just this hero has better damage numbers, so we're going to pick this hero this patch. You have heroes that are like going to carry items better than other heroes, but like, you know, I'm just trying my best to like understand that I'm just doing my best to understand that I've been playing this game for a long time, and not every change is going to be made is going to serve me and my biases. I get that. I also get that my opinions aren't necessarily the opinions of the greater player base as a whole. I just feel as though the opinions that the current player base holds aren't actually doing the game any favors. When we look at player numbers and match numbers, and we look at like the way that the game has evolved and like what the esports scene is doing and stuff, the way the offlane evolved is in part due because like offlaners found that you could just start like running around in the tier 1 tower area, could drag creep waves and stack up waves and then lose your tower and just end up like super farmed, and that was just the best way to go about it. And that's not Valve's fault. I think that they had a choice to make though, when there was a patch in 2018 where offlaners were like suiciding into a wave, because if you would basically literally just trade and suicide, you would put yourself in a really good position. I felt as though that was a very interesting way to play the lane. I thought that was really high level. I thought it was utilizing a mechanic like death to its like to benefit you. I thought that was really engaging and interesting and very unique. But Valve is probably like coming at it from like, people shouldn't have to die ever. That's dumb. People shouldn't have to die for anything. So we need to fix this. And then they decided to like make it so that you had to pull to get stuff out of the, or drag waves to get stuff out of the lane. And then it's very hard for me to formulate these thoughts because I am just riffing them. Removing stuff like Aquila and Poor Man's Shield also kind of hurts carry because like you notice it in the games now when you get it. It's not just this like thing you don't notice. Also, I really just am going to take such a big issue with what they did to Stout Shield. That was so pointless what they did to Stout Shield. They like, no matter how well formatted your learn section is, players don't read your spells. They don't read your patch notes. You really think a player is going to go digging through a learn section, to go to the mechanics section, to go down all the way to the bottom to see damage block, and then see within damage block, every melee hero has starting base block percent. Like, no one's gonna do that. You know how much more simple it is and like more accessible it is to just have an item in your inventory that tells you what the item is doing, rather than have every melee hero have this innately like weird passive damage block in them? Like, how are you even supposed to learn that? You have to just have somebody tell you. That's so weird. I just don't understand why they wanted to push the game in this direction, I guess is all I'm getting at, truthfully. I'm not going to make the argument like Offlane is so carry-oriented with like heroes like Razor now, because it's always been like that. Admiral Bulldog is proof of that. Like, the way that Admiral Bulldog approached the offlane as a player from the beginning was like as a carry. That's not, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like that's a new thing. It's also, I just aesthetically, look how good Source 1 looks. Look how good the lighting engine is, the details, just all the small things. This is even like later on when they removed the blue fire, but like blue fire for the Radiant and red fire for Dire. There's clouds casting shadows on the ground. The game looks like it's made out of clay. It's got so much personality. The color usage is so muddy, but not in like a bad way. It's like really, like the colors have gotten better, first and foremost. That update where they changed the color scheme is something I had been complaining about for years and years and years, so I'm super happy about that. I thought they washed the game out in Source 2, but also, like, it's decisions like every single hero has less turn speed, or more turn speed, because we felt like when you do stuff like that, you push the emphasis of like being good at controlling your hero away. Like, you oversimplify the game to a point where it's so easy to solve. Like, you strip away people having to think about all these different aspects of the game to the point where the only thing left to think about is like, what's the most optimal path for gold? I don't know, man. Frustrated, because it's just a lack of understanding of what the fuck is this direction. Like, why do we keep pushing the game further in this direction? I felt like facets were going to be a way to, like, bring back older hero concepts and bring in new ones, not devolve, like, and they, look, okay, they've tried facets in many different ways. They tried it with talents, they tried it with shards, the original intent of shards. If you go back and look at, like, what they did, it wasn't just like linear upgrades, it was side grades. It was alternative ways to play the hero back in like its initial release. Like you can look at like Naga's shard. It made like it was just a strict like linear damage upgrade, but the point of it was that it opened up the way for you to play like a Radiance Naga again, which was previously locked. It's like that was a similar idea. I thought that was cool. Facets are gonna go the same way as shards. It's gonna go the same way as talents. They're gonna chicken out on giving the game actual diversity and actual strategical variance, and they're just going to end up being like linear. It's going to be like, here's the way that you play the hero 90% of the time, and then here's a niche thing that you can do if you have a very, very weird situation, because we decided that it was too complicated to have multiple variants of heroes that were so drastic and different. It's like, I felt like this would be like, oh, one facet is Tinker, like old Tinker. One facet is new Tinker, so you could have support Tinker or core Tinker. And then it's like, oh, well, everyone's complaining about core Tinker, so we ended up nerfing the core Tinker facet, but support Tinker's fine. So we left the support Tinker facet, like, pretty well in place, because it's like, people who want to still play core Tinker, there you go, it's still there for you. It's not going anywhere. It's an option for you, and it can still be applied and opens up strategical variance for players. But again, it just devolved into linearity. It devolved into, like, just a right and a wrong choice. You actually just have a right and a wrong choice in almost every facet decision you make in the game. Like, very seldom are you going to be like, what facet do I take? You're always like, why the fuck? You're always like, am I actually going to take the other one? Probably fucking not. Think about, like, I'm actually struggling to think of a hero where I have to consider what facet I take. Maybe Quap, but like, that's not right now as of like making this, like one of them's bugged, so if you like ult a fucking somebody with an A on disc, you just get locked to 1 HP for the rest of the game. So like, you don't actually think about it, because you're just not gonna, you're gonna kill yourself and fucking die with a bug, so let's just take the other one. Like, that's not fair, and I get that, but it's like, it's ironic that in the end of it all, I mean, look at, like, there's a reason that Roche used to be here. It was because the Radiant lanes were significantly better, so to balance it out, Dire got Roche. Look, I don't know. I'm just... I don't know, man. I want to play Dota 2. I don't want to fucking play Dota 3, right? I'm sick of playing Dota 3. Dota 3 is boring. Dota 3 is, like, bland. Dota 3 is the same shit every game with a different hero skin. When you play carry, it doesn't fucking matter what carry you pick. You do the same shit every single game. The only variance you have is, am I sticking in lane for 5 extra minutes, or am I going to Ancients for early 5 minutes? Like, you have the same game plan. You have the same game plan on every mid laner, you have the same game plan on every off laner, you have the same game plan on every support. Every single hero just has the exact same fucking plan. There's nothing to fucking do in this game except the thing that you do every single game. And that sounds really pretentious, but that, I assure you, was not the case in the past. Every hero had a very unique game plan. Every hero had a completely different way to approach the game as a whole, and that made every team have a unique game. That made every team have a unique approach to the game as a whole. Every team had different players that they wanted different emphasis on. E.g. with Arteezy, like I was talking about earlier, they would put so much emphasis on playing the safe lane in the mid lane, where Fear would basically play Plague Pause 2 from the safe lane. That was kind of viable, because you could leave the two alone, or you could leave the safe laner alone against an off laner, and they would get equal EXP, so you could like still do stuff. Like, I don't know, man. It's just like, it's fucking just the same shit. It's so bland. There's no variance. And people aren't responding to it. And catering to the casual audience hasn't worked. The game's still fucking dying, but now you're just alienating all the people who actually liked the game before, except for Reddit lords who like to claim that, like, the game was too hard before. Even though they don't even... I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm mauled about it. I am. But whatever. I guess is out of my hands. If the Dota player base wants this, then I guess Valve has to honor what the actual current player base wants and not try to pander to a bunch of people who probably quit the game, may never come back, so whatever.